Welcome back to Dominant Mets Nation. Well, we got another interesting Mets video for you today, and it's going to be all about upgrading our team and trying to make our team better. Okay, before we get into that, as always, smash the like button, hit the sub button, join us because we got a lot of interesting baseball content to come. Okay, so first off, there's a lot of rumors about guys like JD Martinez and adding help at the DH position, protecting Mr. Pete Alonso. Of course, that's what we need to do. We want to upgrade the lineup. It's been pretty anemic thus far in spring training, so that is at the forefront right now. And the rumors, like I mentioned, JD Martinez number one. There's also rumors that guys like Evan Longoria, he's a guy who's 37, 38 years old. He would be brought in to be an extra third base option, more or less a veteran presence to help the young guys like Brett Baty grow as a professional. And you know what? I don't think that is a bad idea at all. Bringing guys in to be veteran presences and mentors to young guys help out tremendously. If you look at why a guy like Anthopoulos, the Braves general manager, brought in Sale's been injured throughout his career. And he was said, I forgot on what podcast, he says, you bring veteran good guys in to make your team better, They can mentor the young guys. So that's why I would like to bring in a Martinez. Hey, if you want to go value option, you can go Longoria. Okay, that's fine. But we're going to get into the meat of our video. The meat of our video is going to be addressing a lot of rumors. There have been a lot of rumors. There's been podcasts about where could Mr. Pete Alonso go and which teams have what it takes to get Pete Alonso. Because I'll tell you this. If you are a team interested in Pete Alonso, his services are unique. He provides a dynamic that no one really provides. He has mammoth power. He produces home runs on a consistent basis that no one in major leagues produces. He has the most home runs in 2019. He's out there and he has something that is special. So, and you're dealing with David Stearns right now. So if you want to acquire something that means so much to Met fans and so much to the Mets organization, you got to go into it knowing you're going to get ripped off. So if you go into a resource and Baseball Trade Values, it's a website that has a trade simulator, and it basically tells you how much each player is worth. And for Mr. Pete Alonso, it says that Pete Alonso's trade value is 11.1. 11.1. That's really not that high. So Baseball Trade Values that I just mentioned, it's based on a couple factors. It's based on your field value minus your salary, how much you're being paid, and then it gives you a figure called surplus. So the surplus value, and that's the value of Pete Alonso, what he's worth now, is 11.1. The field value tells you how much you're valued on the field. It goes into your WAR projections, how much they think your projections are going to be, your totals, your numbers, how much salary you're owed, how much injury risk potential you have. So that number is based on several different factors, years remaining in your contract. So for Pete Alonso, he's at 11.1. Okay, so now you got to go to teams that potentially could be interested in Pete Alonso. And the number one team that I keep hearing, and I'm not sure how much truth there is to that, but you have none other than the Chicago Cubs. So when I go bring up the Chicago Cubs, you look at their top prospects. Obviously, their top prospect right now is a guy very, very familiar to Mets fans, and he's a guy that I'm pretty sure a lot of Mets fans would like back. His name is Pete Crow Armstrong. And I'll tell you what, before I even kind of explore that, I'll tell you right now, it's not even close to happening because Baseball Trade Values, if there's a trade, I would assume maybe you can get ripped off by 10, maybe 15 points. But Pete Crow Armstrong value, according to baseball trade values, is 50.9. Pete Alonso's is 11.2. So that's a 40-point difference. Now, what the Cubs can do is they can include some high salary players that maybe have a negative value, but I just don't think there's a match there. There'd be no way in hell the Cubs would trade Pete Crow Armstrong for a 2-month rental. Even though the Mets did that, obviously to get Javier Baez, that's when Pete Crow Armstrong was a little bit more of an unknown. So now you go to the second best prospect the Cubs have, and he's a guy that the Mets would certainly be interested in. His name is Cade Horton. Cade Horton is a right-handed pitcher. He's 22 years old, 6'1", 211 pounds. Cade Horton is a guy with all the potential in the world. His trade value is 34.1. 34.1. So he's a guy that has a lot more trade value than Pete Alonso. But it really depends on the desperation of the Cubs. If they put everything together this year and they think that Pete Alonso could make the difference from them potentially winning a World Series, that's really the only way I could see them surrendering a guy like Cade Horton. But quite honestly, he would be the only guy I really would be interested in acquiring. They don't really have any pitchers other than, I guess, their ninth best pitcher. Their ninth ranked prospect. That would be a pitcher. His name is Jordan Wicks. He's a left-handed pitcher. His value is 17, but I just don't think he provides the upside that David Stearns would want. I mean, if you're trading away Pete Alonso, you're going to want a guy who could be a top-end starter. Jordan Wicks is a guy who would be a bottom-end starter. He'd probably be a 4 or a 5. Cade Horton has a lot more upside, a lot more potential. I don't think the Cubs would do it, but he's the only player that I would really consider trading Mr. Pete Alonso for, somebody who could be a top-end starter. Okay, so that's the trade that I would propose to the Cubs, or accept from the Cubs, and possibly trade Pete and try to get him back at next year. Now, another team that has been rumored to possibly be interested in Mr. Pete Alonso are the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays have notoriously been aggressive in the last couple of years. Obviously, they made some big signings, very big signings as of late. So I really got to give them credit. They've been, really aggressive, and I really like that approach. But if I look at their top prospects, they don't really have that much, I'll be honest with you. Ricky Tiedemann, that's their top prospect. He has a rating of 38.2. He's a 21-year-old left-handed pitcher. Again, he's a guy that I would probably consider trading Pete Alonso for. He's a guy with potential. If David Stearns considers him a guy that can be a top-end starter, I would pull the trigger. I would pull the trigger. A lot of these guys in minor leagues from other teams, I'm not that familiar with. But if he can be a top-end starter, these are the only type of trades I would consider making. And they're trades that I fully accept. The fan bases of the Blue Jays and Cubs would say, oh, no, we're getting ripped off. And if you look at baseball trade values, it confirms, yeah, these teams would have to be getting ripped off. But those are the only type of trades I would envision that Mets would accept, really. Now, if you go to the number 2 prospect of the Blue Jays, his name is Orelvis Martinez. He's an infielder. He's age 22. His value is 20.3. Number 3 prospect is Arjun Namala. He's at shortstop. He's 11.1. But these infielders right now, we don't really need. I mean, the Mets and the Blue Jays, let's just say a Ricky Tiedemann was an option, but it's just not balancing out for the Blue Jays. They're like, hey, you know what? We're giving you way too much value to balance things off. The Blue Jays can also put in guys making a lot of money that can really level things off. Let's just say if they don't want to experiment with George Springer anymore. He's way too injured, and they, want to get rid of the salary. I'm not saying that the Blue Jays are a team wanting to dump salary, but that would be a way to kind of level out the baseball trade values. For example, Springer has a negative value of 24.3. Tiedemann has a value of 38.2. That would be a surplus value if you, well, 14. Pete Alonso's value is 11.2. So right then and there, that's almost a fair trade. That's almost a fair trade. Of course, the Mets would be getting a little more out of it in terms of value. But like I said, that's the only way a Mr. Pete Alonso would be traded. So what do you think about those? Would you make that trade for a potential top end starter? I mean, I would make that trade with the idea that I'm going to try to re-sign Pete Alonso in the offseason. But those are the only things I would consider. If we can get a one or a two, we know how expensive pitching is. We know really how rare it is. And I know Pete Alonso has that home run dynamic that is ultra rare. But look at it. There's not many teams that have guys like Pete Alonso, but there are teams that win the World Series all the time. They just find ways to produce runs in different ways. You can have 5, 6, 7 guys in your lineup hit 25 home runs. That's a way to compensate from losing one guy who hits 45. And that's probably what I would rather have. I'd rather have a more balanced offense 1 through 9, guys who have power throughout, more or less, than one guy in the middle of the lineup who can hit 45, 50, because it's very easy for a pitcher to pitch around and to avoid that. But it's a lot harder to attack a lineup that has a balanced power threat throughout the lineup. So I think that David Stern is going to build a team like that because it's a lot harder to pitch to. It's very easy to pitch to a team like the Mets right now. That's why if you watched my video the other night, we were really experimenting with the lineup and how to really make the lineup harder for pitchers to approach. We were trying to move Nimmo around, McNeil around, hoping that Marte would come back and resembles some form that he had a couple years ago. But that's what I think. And that's why trading a guy like Pete Alonso, even though I would love to keep him and I feel he has the most value to the New York Mets, that's why I think there's a high possibility that if we do trade him, that we can resign him. Okay, so drop a comment. What do you think about those trades? Are they crazy? Is my thought process out there? Hey, oh well. Like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, share the videos. I thank you so much. We're going to keep this interesting baseball content coming. I really appreciate you. Have a great day.